So welcome everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started. It's like 4 minutes after, and we've got a full slate and a full day. So I know a bunch of you all will be going to different things. So the Global Opportunities for International Students panel, and as you all hopefully know, as you've logged in to join, this is part of a day-long event with the collaboration of the 7 colleges and Global Opportunities Fair. The idea being that I think even in non-COVID times that looking at opportunities, global opportunities beyond your 4 years, which a lot of you are already doing, you're international students, but what else is there? And talking to students who have done that, and moderated by Brittany Rhodes, who is the Director of International Student Services at Mount Holyoke College. So I'm gonna turn it over to her, and then we'll do introductions and you'll meet the students and kind of go from there.
Good morning, thank you, Ruby. My name is Bree Rhodes, and I am the Director of International Student Advising at Mount Holyoke College, as Ruby said. She and I are both part of the McCullough Center for Global Initiatives. So we support international students, as well as supporting any of our enrolled students through study abroad and international internship experiences. So I would like to thank you all for coming today, and especially a big thank you to the panel. So I am a DSO, or an International Student Advisor at Mount Holyoke, which means that I help F1 students navigate a lot of their work issues in the US, the legalities regarding F1 status. But today we're here to talk about a lot of different options that go beyond just, staying in the US and beyond just what you're allowed to do in various statuses. So I'm really excited about this panel. So let's go ahead and have the panelists introduce themselves, and I will call on you just in the order I have you on my screen, if that works for you guys. And then we'll get into some questions. So the first person I see is Miel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miel. I am a recent graduate of Mount Holyoke College, class of 2020. And I currently am working at Mastercard in New York. So that's where I'm currently based. I'm originally from Mumbai, India, and I came to the US for college, spent 3 years at Mount Holyoke, and interned at Mastercard the summer between my junior and senior year. Loved it so much that I wanted to come back full time. And now I'm part of their launch program for recent college hires. And I am in a rotational program in their products and engineering department, looking at how we can leverage Mastercard assets to build products for other businesses. And throughout this time, I would say that the skills and people that I've met at college, especially through the McCullough Center, have been a huge help to me to navigate my journey, not only at Mount Holyoke, but beyond, and navigate my career as well.
Thank you. The next person on my screen is Rita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rida, and I'm a recent graduate from Mount Holyoke College as well. So I graduated in 2019 with a major in economics, and I'm currently working at NatWest Group, which was previously known as the Royal Bank of Scotland in London. So like the rest of the world, I'm pretty much working from home, and it's been almost a year now. So at Mount Holyoke, I used a lot of the McCullough Center's resources. I did an internship the summer after my sophomore year in Brussels, and I used the link funding. So those of you who are not from Mount Holyoke, the link funding is basically a stipend we get for internship, unpaid internships. So I think depending on the city that you're going to, I think it's like upwards of $3,000. So I used that, and I spent my summer in Brussels. And then I also studied abroad in London, in England, at Queen Mary. And after that semester abroad, I did a summer internship at RBS, and I absolutely loved it, and I got a return offer. So I went back to Massachusetts for my senior year, and then I moved to London. And yeah, it's been a great experience. And I think the McCulloch Center was instrumental in making it happen. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Monica.
Hi everyone, thank you for letting me come to the panel today. My name is Monica. I graduated in 2015, which seems like a long time ago. I majored at international relations and mathematics while I was at Mount Holyoke, and I actually started working in Boston at a company called Wellington, but my visa didn't work out, so I only stayed there for a few months before I had to move to London. So I tried to look for jobs when I was in Boston for London jobs, and then went to London, did interviews, and then started my career in management consulting. Since then, I've done a master's degree, and now I work at a plastic chemical recycling company called Plastic Energy as a strategy manager. So my start of the career were a very bumpy, and I would say that without the help of Mount Holyoke and the alumni that I've met along the way, it would not be here. So very happy to transfer my knowledge and experience.
Thank you. And then finally, Zandi Lebekwa.
Thank you so much. So my name is Zandi Lebekwa, and I am an Amherst class of 2011. So it's almost a decade since I graduated. That feels crazy to say. But so it's been 10 years since I graduated from Amherst. I got the Nelson Mandela Scholarship to be able to study at Amherst after I matriculated here in South Africa. And then I spent 4 years at Amherst, and right afterwards, I actually returned to Johannesburg, South Africa to begin work. While I was at Amherst, I got the opportunity to be involved in internships. In my sophomore year, I did an internship at an organization called Student Sponsorship Program, which was the same organization that had provided a scholarship for me to be able to attend my high school. And they were the ones that linked me to Amherst. So I went back there to work for a few months in the summer in my sophomore year. And then in my junior year, I also studied abroad. It was the year 2010, which was the Soccer World Cup in South Africa. And though I did explore other options of studying abroad, I think I looked at Sweden and other places, it only made sense for me to come back home. So I studied abroad back home in Cape Town, South Africa. And that was a really positive experience. And I really think it was very helpful because during that time, I was able to create some connections that really helped me after I graduated because I had somewhere to start. After I graduated, actually, I did hit up a lot of the people that I had met during my study abroad in Cape Town and in Johannesburg, and they were able to assist me to get some work, as well as because I was also doing the Roland Woods Fellowship at Amherst, which also offered me a chance to do some work experience early after I graduated. And the fact that I already did know some people from my study abroad experience really helped me to launch my career. I work in youth development and education. And so I've been working in various spaces, and then right now I'm actually surprise back at Student Sponsorship Program, which was the program that gave me a scholarship and the internship in my sophomore year. And now I'm currently working as their graduate and alumni associate, which means that I work in career guidance for current high school students here in South Africa, as well as to create links, especially in terms of networking for alumni that have gone through the organization.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first question. And we'll be doing this round robin style. So panelists, when I ask a question, feel free to just unmute yourself and answer. Just any input you have would be great. So the first one we're going to talk about is, what resources did you use when navigating your career or graduate opportunities after college? what are other resources that are available to current students that they may not have thought about?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. So I just wanted to mention the fellowship that I was able to get from Amherst. It's called the Roland Woods Fellowship, and it really helped with my transition back to South Africa because it was quite difficult to find a job just fresh out of the United States, and obviously not a lot of people are familiar with Amherst College and the liberal arts kind of system. So it was a little bit difficult. And so through the Roland Woods Fellowship, I was able to get some funding that allowed me to do an internship so I could approach a professional, which I did, and that I'd met in my junior year while I studied abroad. I was able to approach them and basically offer my services for free as a volunteer. And I had a chance to, so they helped me to pay for my accommodation and kind of my living expenses while I was creating that connection. And again, it helped me then transition into paying work because through those connections and through the work that I did for free under the fellowship, not only did I get really great experience within the arts and education sector in South Africa, I was also able to leverage those connections to be able to get an actual job right after I was done with the fellowship work. So that was really helpful for me.
Adding on to that, I think just casting a wider net. So I'm an international student as well. I'm from Pakistan. And when I was looking for jobs in the US, I think there's just so much uncertainty around visas. And at any moment, depending on what administration is in DC, they can put like a halt on whether they're processing visas. So it was very difficult to like get your door in, even with interviews, because employers didn't want to like give you a shot because they sort of knew that they couldn't really hire you. So I think for me early on, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to travel. I'm going to make use of the opportunities that Mount Holyoke has. And then when I was studying abroad in London, I think it's just like the financial capital of the world in some ways. And so I just used that opportunity to go out and meet people for coffees. And I think one of the resources that I used while I was in England was the career center at the university I was in. So because they're obviously very used to hosting like events for their own alumni, I just leveraged that network and just got my door into like the banking and finance industry and got my interviews that way. And I think it was much easier because it's a big city. You can actually meet people for coffee and make an impression. And I think I'm not really entirely sure how all the visa stuff worked out for me because I was on a short-term student visa. So I had to apply for one for my internship as well as when I joined full-time. But I think maybe just because it's the rules around visas are more like set in stone in England than they are in the US. There are actual processes around that. It's easier to, I think, maybe get a job as an international student than it might be in the US. At least that what was my experience was, yeah.
I think I would echo what has already been said in that your network is huge in terms of a resource in navigating your career. And to me, that was a little challenging coming straight out of college because you haven't really had the opportunity to meet a ton of people in the industry you want to work in. So leveraging the alumni network was huge because it's really about distinguishing yourself from other applicants for the jobs you're looking for. And that's hard to do in just an online application. So when you start to form those real connections with alumni and they're really your best advocate, it really helps to sort of differentiate your application from the rest. And there's really someone there advocating for you and they know your background. So I would definitely say to leverage the people, leverage your network and try to grow that as much as possible. When I was applying for jobs, I was mostly looking for analyst positions in larger companies. And it's tough to even get your application read in those cases. And so when I actually knew a person working at the company or I had taken the time to meet with recruiters, it was a lot easier to understand what they were looking for in applications. And that really helped me sort of sell myself to these places where I wanted to work. So leveraging your network is, I think, the biggest piece of the puzzle for me.
Yeah, I think my experience were very similar to everyone else's here on the panel. What I wish I was as smart as Rita to cast my net pretty wide, but I actually only focus on finding a job in the US, which I did succeed in trying to get a visa and everything. But when I thought, oh, I'm all set, the visa didn't come through. So I had to start again. And so I started back at the place where what got me the first job in the first place, which was the Mount Holyoke Career Center. So I started going through the job posting again. And what I did was I went onto an alumni database, which is a huge database. And I looked for everyone who was based in London and I emailed them. But the problem with that is people don't really check their Mount Holyoke emails. So then you have to combine it with like several things like LinkedIn and even sometimes I don't want to call it stalking, but going into companies that they work at and trying to guess their company email addresses. So I think it's very difficult being an international student because you don't have that existing family and friends network in that foreign country. So think of the college and the alumni as your family and try to be persistent, even though if they don't respond, you have to stay persistent. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So that's a really great segue, thinking of the alumni network as your family, because our next question, and I know you guys have touched on this a little bit as far as networking, but if you could go a little bit deeper specifically about alumni networking and how alumni networking can assist you in finding these opportunities, especially overseas.
Okay, I can start with that one. So while at Mount Holyoke, I was the president of Women in Business, which is basically a society that helps like students with their CVs and networking and interviewing skills and just like making sure that students on campus are thinking about opportunities in terms of internship and life after graduation. So we did have a lot of sessions around alumni networking, how to go about it, how to approach alumni and all those sort of things. And I know I disagree with the CDC a little bit here because I know that their advice is like obviously go on the network alumni network. That's I think they have a new system now, or just approach alumni, ask for a phone call, and slowly build up that relationship. I don't know if that's maybe like older alumni might have a different approach to this, but for me, and I have had students reach out to me over the last year or so, I would actually just say that, let them know that you've done your research. For example, if an alumni works for Mastercard, for example, let them know that if you've done your research on Mastercard and you're excited about this company, and then just be straightforward. Just let them know what you're looking for. Is it actually that you want to ask questions, but because there's so much information online already and people sort of know what the role is and what the company does and all those sorts of information, just let them know that you want to put in an application, and is there any way that they can have a look at your CV, or is there any way that they have an in with the HR in that company? Because I think then it's just like, because I've tried it that way when I was in sophomore year or junior year, like just trying to build that relationship and asking questions just for the sake of asking questions because I knew the answer already, right? Because these are like huge companies that have a lot of like information online on what they do and what their graduate roles are like. And I think it's just like a time saver because A, yeah, let them know you're interested, you've done your research, and then B, just go for it. Just, shoot your shot sort of thing would be my advice, rather than just like slowly building it up, because these applications are not open for like the longest of times. Like, a lot of the times they only like have like a couple of weeks to put your application in, and you don't have that time to build the relationship and also get your foot in the door at the same time. So that would be my advice.
I think I completely agree with what Rita mentioned, and I had a very similar experience too. I think when connecting with alumni, it's important to build a relationship. I wouldn't say that you should immediately when connecting with them say like, how can I get this job, or like I want to know more about this like application process. I would really look at it maybe is a little more slow, in that you really want to get to know them first and have them get to know you, because once they know who you are, why your skills make you the best candidate for the job, they're going to advocate for you. So really take the time to build that relationship. And when you're first getting in touch with them, it was always suggested to me that you should never outright mention that, this is a job I'm looking for, these are the skills I have, like, how can I get this job? It's really like, get to know me, like this is my background, this is what makes me uniquely qualified, this is where I'm coming from, and take the time to schedule a call so they can get to know you, you can get to know them. And I think that's a good way to even filter out job options for yourself as the applicant, because you might find that the culture of a company isn't the right fit for you, or the opposite can happen and say, wow, like, I didn't spend too much time on this application, but after talking to a person who works there, I really find that this is a great fit. So once you take the time to understand the alumni, the culture of the company, it can really help with the process. And then once you build those meaningful relationships, it's a lot easier to have an advocate in these places for you. Like I said, again, with these big companies, they're not looking at your standard just online application. You have to have something that differentiates you from the hundreds of other students that are applying. And if you have that one advocate within the company who truly knows you as a person, it's going to be a lot easier to leverage them for job opportunities.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. So I just wanted to add one more thing to my previous answer on resources that I used. So when I was looking for a job, this wasn't available yet, but Facebook groups for at least Mongolian students that I know now, and I am also in a Facebook group of Seven Sisters International Development. People are very active in posting job postings and various career advices. So get into those kind of social media networks, I would say. And then to answer a question on alumni, I definitely agree that do your research before you reach out. So when I was reaching out to people in London, in the UK, for example, and even in Europe, because I was just looking for any job anywhere in the world at that point, I haven't visited London, so my opening sentence was just, I just want to know what your life is like in the city, what is your professional work life is like, and just understanding more about kind of the aspect of a industry or a job markets that you don't usually see posted online and things like that. So that way, I think you build a very solid ground that you can build on. And then eventually when you say, oh, I found this job posting, what do you think about this company? What do you think about this, before asking them to review your resume or something like that. So definitely, I think it's just kind of that relationship building is very important. And I actually had a specific help from an alumni in London when she saw my resume, and she said, feel free to put down my address as your address on the resume, because if you don't have a local address, people will not call you back. So even when I was in the US, I put down a London address that I start getting basically interviews and calls back. So I think those kind of very small little details, people can only tell you if they know you and they just know you through a period that you're trying to do this, rather than just 1 or 2 emails. So yeah.
And yeah, just to add on that briefly, in terms of the Alumni Connections as well, I really also made use of the annual dinners that they would host in South Africa by Amherst, whereby they'd actually invite all Amherst alums that may be in Johannesburg. And so since I've been graduating, I've always made a point to go to those types of meetings. And other than get those kind of professional connections, which weren't that useful to me because majority of the Joburg alums are working kind of in a very business corporate space, and I'm more in kind of the nonprofit space. It was still very helpful to interact with everyone and be able to maintain those relationships over the years. And actually the way that I got the job that I have right now was because Dexter, another alum who was a few years behind me, was in connection with the organization that I'm working at now, and they were looking for someone. He wasn't available, and he actually told me about it. So the fact that we were in touch and we had that social connection made it very easy for him to think of me and let me know, and we made the connection. So I think that was also a really important part of just maintaining those relationships, even if they don't necessarily help you job-wise in the moment, they might help you in the future.
Thank you. So the next question is, what advice can you give to students in navigating the process of going to another country to work? By another country, we mean a country outside of the United States.
I can take this. So I was very lucky to have a EU passport, so I could look for any jobs in Europe without much difficulties. But I know it is a big struggle for international students. And so again, with the alumni network, I think it would be good letting the alumni know at the beginning of your interaction that whether you have a work authorization or not, because there are different ways they can give you advice. And so I think if you don't have a work authorization status, you need to start your research a lot earlier, because like I said, if you have an understanding of how the job market works, so I'm just gonna refer back to the UK. I didn't have any idea until I started looking, and I already missed all the deadlines, because there are cycles that you apply within, and if you're out of the cycle, you have to wait half a year and doing whatever jobs you do in between. So understanding this kind of cycles and these like what tests you have to do for certain jobs, it's during the recruitment is also very important. So I would say, if you are serious about looking for a job abroad and you already know that that's going to be a year from now, do your research early on and do get in touch with people early on, because like Rita mentioned already, it's easier to get a sponsorship in Europe compared to the US, but you need to be prepared for this process as well. And there are so many international students guidance for international students in the UK to find a job in the UK as well. So there will be published lists of companies that are willing to sponsor and so on. So dig deep into that kind of international students' life in these countries to find out how you can be one of them and apply like one of them.
Yeah, definitely agree with everything you've said here. Yeah, just if you want to like work abroad, for me, the decision was a little easier because I had been to London before and had spent a semester abroad here. So it wasn't like I was going into the great unknown. So I think, yeah, just if you can't travel to the country beforehand, just making sure that you are speaking to people who live there, you are aware of, aware of the application process. For example, even something as simple as your resume, it looks completely different when you're applying to jobs in England versus when you're applying to jobs in the US. So just like, ironing those details out and making sure that you're being smart about your applications. And for example, in the US, you have like Wall Street for, again, banking and finance, so it might not apply to everyone, but, you have websites like Wall Street Oasis and things where they talk about the hiring process. In the UK, you have Target Jobs and the Student Room and things like that, which have a lot of information around navigating the recruitment process, specifically in sort of like Big Four, banking, finance, management, consulting sort of jobs. So yeah, having access to those resources. And yeah, and I think just like when you're moving to a new country, like for example, opening a bank account, those sorts of things, again, a person who lives in that country will be best placed to guide you. For example, in the UK, you can open a bank account pretty easily. But when I was in Belgium, it was very, very, they had really strict rules because of money laundering and terrorist financing issues that they've had in the recent past. So, something as simple as that, making sure you have like access to funds and things like that, knowing which area you want to rent to, so I think joining Facebook groups for that specific country would be like your best shot in terms of like finding a good place to live and have a bank account, and those are sort of basic things you need before moving to a new country. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have one prepared question left, and then after this question, we can open it up for any questions that our participants might have for the panelists. So our final question is, and it would be good if everyone could answer this, if you applied skills, your liberal arts skills, how did you integrate that in your career, especially if you were working in your home country? How did you explain what a liberal arts education was, if that wasn't something that you, like people in your country were familiar with? And also, how did you just integrate those skills and knowledge with what people would expect?
Okay, I can start. So I think the first part of the question maybe better applies to my experience with how did I integrate a liberal arts education into my current work experience. And I would say it was very helpful. I work in product development, and I think that is a very cross-functional role. It's almost like the work equivalent of a liberal arts education. Because you're leveraging people who work in very different departments, and you're sort of the middle person when interacting with people with very different experiences, different backgrounds. So I think having being part of a liberal arts institution, you get a little taste of everything really without, super specializing into one area very quickly. And those skills really helped me early on. Because I was able to get an understanding of the different business units of the company without super specializing into one role. So that was just an observation I had early on. In terms of skills, I would say that the liberal arts education really focuses on your writing skills. And for me, I was a psychology major at Mount Holyoke, and writing was a huge part of my coursework. And that was extremely important because I had to refine writing in a psychology setting, but also writing to appeal to different audiences. I had a journalism nexus, so that writing again was a huge part. And I really found that I leveraged those skills when writing my applications. Like I said, you really have to distinguish yourself in these applications, and writing is really your best friend to do that because it shows your individuality and why you would maybe be the best fit for a certain job. So I would definitely say the writing skills that you gain with a diverse liberal arts education is probably one of the strongest assets one can leverage. And I know that holds to be true when you're applying to business school or to grad school as well. If you have strong writing skills, you can really advocate for yourself in a very strong and impactful manner.
So I can go next, and I can definitely agree that the writing skills were a huge part of me being able to kind of transition in my career. So again, I've been working for 10 years, and I was a political science and theater and dance double major. So those were two kind of very different majors. And even when I was graduating, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, whether it was in the US or back in South Africa. Now, due to the difficulties of staying in the US, which I'm sure a lot of us have already kind of explained, I decided that I wanted to go back home and start working there. And I really kind of, again, cast my net quite wide and just applied for anything that I could get. And what I started working in was particularly in the arts, because I think the barriers to entry there are a little bit less in the arts because I had that experience with my theater and dance degree. But whilst I was working in the arts, again, I also started to develop more skills, which I had gotten from my liberal arts education, which allowed me to be a bit more adaptable. So I was able to move within organizations quite quickly, working from project to project. And so I kind of worked into a space where I was more into project management, meaning that I was able to work on lots of different levels. And then my second job, I kind of slowly pivoted away from the arts And again, still quite involved with working with young people. But again, I was able to pivot away from the arts a little bit more. And now, 10 years later, I'm working still with young people, but in education, which is very similar, but also very different. So again, it allowed me a lot of different options in my career. I could apply for a lot of different jobs. And again, with the writing skills, you are able to know those cover letters, because that's kind of the key here in South Africa, and I'm sure in a lot of other countries, those cover letters where you basically try and match your skills to what they want. And so when you're really good at writing, I think it's very easy for you to say, these are the skills that I've got, and this is how they match up with what you're looking for. So yeah, it's given me a lot of flexibility, and it's given me also a lot of space to explore what I'm interested in, because one of the things that I'm really wanting to do right now after 10 years working is looking at my master's. And I think now that I've got quite a big range and a lot of options to look at, I have a clearer idea of what I'd like to kind of solve for when I go into the next stage of my studies.
I can go next. So yeah, I definitely agree with all of that, what's been said already. I think with my liberal arts education, it made me stand out a little bit, because I hadn't done like the typical like banking, finance, accounting majors that the rest of London had done. So it made me stand out. I had a story to tell, because it was different. I was born, like, I'm Pakistani, but I go to school in the US, but I'm here in London. So I think just having that international experience made for a good storytelling, and you bring like a different perspective to the role, which I think people really appreciate. I think sometimes on the outside looking in, the interview process can seem quite daunting and cutthroat, but I think a lot of people just want to have a conversation. And if you are sort of like well-traveled and you've like studied different things, or taken different classes, done different internships, people want to know more about that. Like, what did you do? What was the experience like? So I think it humanizes you a lot more. And just in terms of like transferable skills, I think I work in corporate banking, which is like sort of like corporate banking relationship management, and also like investment banking somewhat, because we're doing origination and structuring deals as well. I think you can do this job right out of high school, like in terms of just like, and that I think even like a finance or accounting graduate would say the same, just because to make sure that playing field is level, they give you a lot of training, and you actually do a lot of like studying. So in terms of like your education, I think it's more about like the softer skills you bring to the job, and how you are working in a team, like dealing with deadlines, and how you are in terms of your writing skills, because you're like obviously emailing customers, but also writing reports for like credit and for like portfolio management teams and things like that. So I think it's just like a host of different things that you bring to the role, and there's like a certain confidence if you're an international student that you bring to the role already, because you've like already navigated through like different situations in your personal life, and I think that sort of it's reflected in your day-to-day role, even if you don't think so yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of my friends, even today, I see other panelists have double majors in something unrelated. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about liberal arts. As I have friends in neuroscience and dance, and I think it enriches your perspective on how to deal with a problem. And I think most of the analyst job that I apply for essentially ask for, can you solve this problem? Can you summarize the solution that you've made? Can you basically break down something really complex and make it very simple? So if you have these analogies, if you have this different experience, that you can put it into everyday life like that. And I think it makes you very, very different from other applicants.
I just wanted to echo that same point as well, because I think that's extremely relevant and true. I think in the job, everybody can like read an Excel spreadsheet. Everybody can read a Word document. It's really about what makes you stand out as a person. And with the liberal arts education, I feel like you have such diverse experience, and it sort of trains you to be so agile, so you're able to pivot from one area of focus into another very quickly. without much difficulty. And once people see those skills and that you're able to display that agility, I think that's a huge asset to leverage, because it's less about the hard skills like Rita mentioned, because you can learn that, they train you to learn that, but it's really the softer skills that you bring to the table that distinguish you.
Thank you all for those were very thoughtful responses. So before we get into questions from our participants, I just wanted to give you all a chance. If there's anything that you think we should have asked but didn't, or just any other thoughts that you have that you wanted to make sure you emphasized that weren't included in these other questions, I just wanted to take a brief moment in case anyone wanted to put anything else out there. You can go ahead and do that now.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on that previous question. The more obvious point was that having had liberal arts experience and now working in education and working with high school students, having gone through that experience makes it so much easier to be able to encourage our current South African scholars to look at international opportunities. I think the liberal arts concept is quite difficult to explain from the outside looking in. And so I think maybe a lot of South African career guidance officers like myself would rather maybe guide them towards your normal commercial degrees that really correspond quite nicely with South African systems. So it was really nice for me to be able to give them a really personal account of how that experience was, and also to be the living picture of the fact that you won't be left destitute with your BA degree. You'll still be able to do well, and you'll still be able to explore what it is that you're interested in, and you'll be able to advance your career as well.
And I would just encourage students who still have the opportunity to study abroad or do an internship outside of the US to just go for it. I know that Mount Holyoke has a lot of resources, but I'm sure the other colleges do as well. So just like, yeah, widen your net, go travel the world, and you're still really young. So, things will work out. And I know it seems really daunting, especially during this like COVID time where you don't know where the economy is going, whether firms are hiring or not. But yeah, just hang in there. And if anyone sort of needs any more like personalized help, I'm always happy to help, and you can get my email address from Ruby or Bree. So yeah.
Thank you. So we have about a little under 15 minutes left. So if you have questions as a participant, you can either type it into the chat box or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask whatever you feel most comfortable doing.
I have a quick question. I was wondering, going to countries where liberal arts and science isn't the norm, how do you explain that? Like, how do you translate for the people working in the company that you want to get your foot in the door, being like, this is a valid degree, and like, how do you convert that for them?
I think I would link that to transferable skills. So when you understand the job posting and the qualification, then you can break it down further. And this is the exercise that the Career Center can help you with, to what kind of skills they're actually looking for, and where can you demonstrate those skills from your degree. I studied international relations and math, and I did a master's in climate change and finance. Nobody still knows what I studied. But if you can just show that you have these transferable skills and some experience related to the job, then I think that should be enough.
Thank you. We've got a question in the chat. It says, wanting to ask what experience you might have had with discrimination and bias with race, gender, or nationality, sexual orientation when applying for jobs.
I mean, with nationality, I guess it's such a big hurdle to you even getting your foot in the door, right? Like I mentioned before, with the US employers, when they realize that you're not actually a US citizen, they just sort of let your candidacy go. They would maybe have you have a first round which you think went great, and then you never sort of hear back. And I actually had I sort of got it towards I had a super day at Bank of America, and I really got along well with my second interviewer, who was a VP in the team that I wanted to really join. And so I followed up with him and I was like, what's up? Like, why am I not getting a final round? Because, you said I smashed it out of the park. And he was really honest with me. And he said, externally, we still say that we're going to take international students, but internally there's sort of an understanding that we really can't because of, all this visa situation. So in terms of nationality, that sort of, I guess, matters a lot, your work authorization and, those sorts of things. In terms of race and gender and sexuality, I can't really speak to that. Maybe there have been some microaggressions, but nothing overt. So grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, so I did apply for a company in London, which got very strange Glassdoor reviews on internal culture. And so I talked to an alumni, and I talked to a few other people that I network within the company. I didn't ask specifically about this, but with an alumni, I actually could ask a straight question of, is this a case that this is happening in the company? And keep in mind that when people are working for this company, they will not be able to discuss this freely with people outside of the company. So you can also reach out to people who actually left the company. So I think that's a good source of information as well, because on LinkedIn, you also have an option to select who worked for those companies and left. And so I think authentic experience will come through them more than people who actually work in those companies. But personally, I don't really have experience with dealing with discrimination while at work. So sorry, I can't really answer this question more.
Thank you, guys. So we have a question specifically for Miel. Do you have any tips as to how to keep a good relationship with the internship company, for example, Mastercard in your case, for future full-time job opportunities?
I think that's a great question because that's probably the biggest factor when getting a return offer, at least in my case it was. So like I said, I interned in the summer between my junior and senior year, and I had a great experience. And I think part of what made that experience so great was the relationships I was able to foster and nurture. And I think that's really important. So, they always encourage you, at least in my internship, almost every day, the managers would encourage us to meet as many people as we could. And initially it is about, quantity of people you're meeting, but eventually it does boil down to the quality of those conversations that you're having. So you want to meet as many people as you can, because then you start to find the people you really click with and the people who you can see could be your ally. And once you do find them, you want to maintain that relationship. So for example, I had a conversation with a lawyer at Mastercard, and that was, a completely different department from mine. I was not pre-law. I was not interested in applying to that department, but I just found that I clicked with her, and I would say the culture that we were talking about was very similar. So I kept that relation up even after my internship ended. I actually traveled after my internship to Scandinavia and visited the Mastercard offices there. So, that definitely helped deepen my relationship with the company as well. During the fall semester when I returned to Mount Holyoke for senior year, I kept emailing them. You never want to ask current employees about job offers. I would say it's maybe a little rude to say, I am looking for this job, what can you do to help me? It's really about building that relationship. So I would say that, you know, talk to them about your current experiences that you're having with, you know, college, about the jobs you're looking at. And then once you build that comfort level with them, you can say that, okay, Mastercard is a company that I want to work at, and this is a specific job I'm looking at. What advice would you have to for me to put on my application? But I would not say that you should mention that outright, because it's really about the relationship. You don't want to make someone feel like you're using them just for a job. You want to build a strong bond and relation with them, and then they will advocate for you. But you know, don't intern at a company and then completely forget about the relations you have, and then only come back when you need the job, right? You need to maintain that consistency with your relations.
Thank you. We have about 5 more minutes left if anyone has any further questions.
I definitely was going to ask about the internship, leveraging the internship, since a lot of you all had mentioned that. And so I think the advice was given around that in terms of networking while you're there is good. And if anyone has anything else to add to that. But I also wanted to, you know, use the knowledge in the room. If there's like things that folks know, databases, websites that you feel like folks should know about or check out, please type that into the chat. Yep. Oh, and I also, one last thing, definitely if you can, there's other panels today that'll cover some of the things that were brought up that some of the panelists spoke about, internationalizing your CV, thinking about, you know, either grad school abroad or some other, you know, searching for a job abroad. There's like a whole thing that we're doing on that this afternoon. So definitely check out the other sessions that'll connect to some of these things that were brought up.
I think just a bit more current. I know that it may be difficult for you to go visit the place at the moment before you want to apply or go for an internship or something like that. But keep in mind that because of the crisis, a lot of jobs have gone online. So that means you can get remote internship a lot easier without having to apply for a visa. I think the prospect of living abroad is always very exciting, and you should take the chance when you can. But maybe this would be a very good time to do internships and the kind of jobs that are normally less available because of visa issues. So take advantage of this job that you can do online right now. I can tell you that the UK is going to be online until end of the year. So.
Thank you.
And I know that this will be recorded, so if anyone wants to access it later, then you'll be able to see that. I am not sure, however, that the chat is kept when there is a recording. So I'm just going to really quickly note that the resources that our panelists have put in here are Going Global, Target Jobs, which I believe is specific for the UK, as well as Student Room. So if you are interested in just taking those first steps, then you can check those out. And it should be Going Global, Target Jobs, and Student Room is what we've got so far.
Perfect. Thank you for having us on the panel. This was really interesting. It was good to see people and answer these questions. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Rita, we should connect.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, and Bree, I think the chat function, the way that it's recorded, is captured. So just so you all know.
Excellent.
That. Yeah, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Bree, for moderating. We totally appreciate this. This is definitely something that you do in terms of helping and advising students. So thank you for being on the panel and moderating.
Sure. And I just wanted to remind everyone that whatever institution you're at, there is an office that does this. They may not all be in the same office, but you've got folks at your school who have this expertise and are able to assist you. So please take advantage of that and make sure that you are working with those faculty and staff members so that you are just getting everything that you that is available to you as far as resources.
Awesome. That's it.
And I just wanted to add, if anybody does need any specific help, if the companies that we've worked for are interesting, I know I would be always happy to have one-on-one conversations. I know it's hard to get maybe personalized advice in a group session, so always happy to chat one-on-one.
Thanks, everybody. It's so great to see you, Zandi. Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Bye. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thanks, everyone.